I feel like everywhere right now, people are talking about inflammation. It's become one of those words that gets used constantly, whether it's social media, supplements, gut health, hormones, weight loss, pretty much in any scenario. But what I notice in practice is that people don't actually know what it means in their body. They just know they probably have too much inflammation. So, what I want to do is actually break down inflammation in a way that makes sense and then connect it to what a lot of women start noticing in their 30s and 40s because there's a very real shift that happens there that often gets missed. So, when we talk about inflammation, we're not talking about something abstract or vague. It's a real measurable process that happens in your body. It involves your immune system, your cells, your signaling pathways. It's how your body responds to stress, damage, or anything it perceives as a threat. In the short term, inflammation is very useful and actually very helpful. If you get sick or injured, you actually want that response. It helps you heal. Where things start to change is when that response doesn't fully turn off. Instead of coming on when it needs to and resolving, it stays slightly activated in the background. Not enough to feel like anything, but enough to influence how your body functions over time. That's what people are usually referring to when they talk about chronic inflammation. Now, there's actually a term in research called inflammaging, which describes that exact process. It's the gradual increase in baseline inflammation that happens as the body changes with age. And what's important to understand is this isn't about one event or one trigger. It's a shift in your baseline when your body becomes slightly more inflammatory overall, and this actually changes how multiple systems behave. That signal doesn't stay in one place. It influences how your metabolism responds to food, which is why blood sugar can feel less stable, cravings increase, insulin resistance feels like it comes out of nowhere. It affects your gut, which is why people notice more bloating or sensitivity to foods they used to tolerate. It influences your energy production, so you feel more fatigued even if you're sleeping. And it affects your nervous system, which can make stress feel more intense or harder to recover from. So when someone says, I feel inflamed, what they're usually describing is not one issue. It's usually the downstream effect of ongoing signaling affecting multiple systems at the same time. Now, here's where it comes especially relevant for women is during the hormonal transition from premenopause into perimenopause and then menopause. Why? Because estrogen plays a significant role in regulating inflammation. It helps keep the inflammatory signal more balanced, it supports your blood vessels, and it contributes to how your body recovers from stress. And as estrogen becomes less consistent, more erratic, and eventually declines, that regulatory effect changes. So, what happens is not just a hormone shift, it's a shift in your inflammatory baseline. This is why research shows that after menopause, women tend to have higher levels of inflammatory markers like CRP and IL-6. This reflects a change in how the body's functioning internally. And this is often the missing piece when women say things like, I feel like everything's the same, but my body is reacting differently. Because it is. Your body's operating in a different internal environment completely. And at the same time, there are changes happening at a deeper level that contribute to this. Your cells don't function quite as efficiently, and instead of shutting down clearly, some of them actually start releasing inflammatory signals into the surrounding tissue. Your mitochondria, which is responsible for energy production, become less efficient and create more internal stress. Your immune system stays slightly more activated, and your gut plays a bigger role in driving all of that inflammatory signaling. So, again, this isn't just one thing, it's multiple small shifts that push your body towards a more inflammatory state as you age. When this becomes useful is when you start to understand what actually drives that signal, because this is where a lot of the advice online becomes oversimplified. You'll see people just reduce inflammation or take this anti inflammatory supplement, but inflammation doesn't come from one place, so it doesn't resolve with one change. The biggest drivers I look at clinically are things like blood sugar stability and insulin resistance, because frequent spikes and crashes cause inflammatory signaling. Gut health is another big one because your gut is one of the main interfaces between your body and your immune system. It is the only place designed to kind of create a barrier between the outside world and the inside world. Stress is also a major driver because your nervous system and your immune system are very closely connected. And then there's overall metabolic health, which influences how your body processes and responds to everything else. When those are supported, inflammation tends to settle. Not because you've targeted it directly through one supplement or one dietary change or one fancy anti inflammatory diet, but because you've changed the environment that was driving it. So if you've been hearing about inflammation everywhere and you feel like this applies to you, especially if you're noticing changes in your energy, digestion, or weight. This is usually the layer that hasn't been explained. It's not one symptom, not one lab value. It's a shift in your baseline that happens to how your body responds overall. And once you understand that, it becomes a lot easier to figure out what actually needs to be addressed. If inflammation hasn't been explained to you in the context of how you're actually feeling, it's very easy to miss what's driving the problem in the first place.